over to give us his insight on this topic. We'll give him his introduction. Oliver's experience spans the past 25 years, starting as a student volunteer at Rogers Television, moving on to freelance and eventually to full-time staff technical producer specializing in mobile production. On leaving Rogers, Oliver pursued freelance broadcast media opportunities until landing at Shooters Broadcast Services as a staff engineer for their mobile unit. He stayed with Shooters for 2 years leading up to the sale of the company, at which time he moved to Videoscope Limited for another 2 years. At that time, Oliver received a call from the new owner of Shooters, Rogers Williams, inviting him back to the company where he remains today. Some of Oliver's best projects include the transitioning from SD to HD and beyond. He's very proud to have been part of the team that did the 2010 Olympic torch relay for the Vancouver Games. Finally, Oliver's engineered a great number of multicam, mobile and studio productions. Examples include Splat-A-Lot, Instant Cash, Meet the Family, the Bombardier C-Series plane launch, and many hidden camera productions. Without further ado, Oliver.
Good evening. Glad to be here. Just feeling a little like the poor cousin compared to Douglas and Mike, but hopefully I'll catch up. Forgive the crudity of my presentation. I didn't have a lot of time to put this together since I'm covering engineering between two offices, between our Vancouver office and our Toronto office, and we're currently moving. So I had to put this together quickly. I don't have a lot of footage to show just due to constraints with broadcasters and things we shot. I can't show a lot, but I can show you at least one video of just something we put together quickly earlier. A lot of the world we're finding is inhabiting quite a lot between what Mike and Douglas are covering right now with POV cameras like the GoPro and the Sony. But we also have to cover a lot because people want that quality for what you're getting in a hidden camera situation. I'm going to start actually by going back to where we originally started in the good old days of the Sony XC999, 777, and 333 cameras. We're talking about CCD cameras that were really more designed along the lines in machine vision technology. Now these cameras were really designed to really just go into a manufacturing process to allow a computer to check out for quality control assurance and get things moving. Obviously, these cameras crossed quite a bit into the broadcast realm when they first came out, especially for POV cameras, including hockey games. I did quite a few hockey games where the venerable XC999 often became quite a good target in the penalty box. We lost about 3 or 4 of those total doing that. But obviously, yeah, we talked about machine vision. The original mount on these cameras was the NF mount, which is a slightly smaller diameter than the actual C-mount lenses that we actually are looking at today. The XC333 was a 1/4-inch HyperHAD CCD camera. Not a bad camera. A CCU was absolutely necessary for this camera for anything to come off of it. So it was a short umbilical going to a very small CCU. Control, very basic. You had auto white balance, dip switches for changing things. The XC77 was a nice 30-inch chip. Again, nice imagery. You could do this as a standalone camera with just a standard plug on the back, a multi-pin that went to a separate connector for power, and then spit out a nice composite video. And then, of course, the XC999 was a 1/2-inch chip. This was the best camera, especially in composite, at least in the good old days of broadcasting, to get a halfway decent image out of it. Really, there wasn't much between the XC999 series of cameras and composite SD leading to SDI. So realistically, it pretty much went straight to HD for anything we started doing. First camera we came across, early 2004, 2005, was the Iconics camera. C-mount camera, directly tied to a CCU. What you had is, this was really one of the first truly POV HD cameras that hit the market. A 1/3-inch, 3 CCD prism progressive camera. 900 TV lines, so basically double that of the XC999. C-mount lenses, straight out of the box, good to go. Had a lot of mounting options. You could mount it top, bottom, whatever you could, all using the 1/4-20 standard mount. Biggest drawback to this camera, you had a short distance run between the CCU and camera, meaning you're at maximum 10 meters away from the camera. So anywhere you're trying to hide it, you've got to find room for that CCU and have power for it right there. Control-wise, it had a few automatic settings in it that weren't too bad. Eventually, they came out with an RCP that you could run down a Cat5 cable. Biggest drawback, it wasn't a standardized IP address RCP. So basically you had to build something from scratch using Cat5 cable directly into their system without being able to use a router in between. So again, you could have control, but you're limited to how far you could actually run it. Now, frame rates. This camera could cover quite a few frame rates in the industry. I mean, 2398, 2425, 2997, all progressive, 720, 1080i, 50, 5994, 60i, and then 1080p, anything up to and including 60p. And this could actually cover that realm of the SD, SDI as well if you were transitioning over. Sensitivity. Now, I have to take this one with a grain of salt. They were claiming a 2000 lux at f8. I don't think it actually came anywhere close to that. When we did a head-to-head comparison between that camera and one I'm going to be talking about later on, there must have been close to about a 2.5 stop difference between the sensitivity on the Iconics compared to this new camera. Very good signal-to-noise ratio, greater than 60 dB, not bad. 0 dB to 18 dB. Now, hidden camera. What we're looking at a lot in this realm, what's the camera behind? More often than not, you don't want a lens out there in the open, so a lot of the time we're behind two-way mirrors. Being generous, you're losing at least 2.5 stops behind that glass. And generally, most hidden camera shows, you're only dealing with available light. You're not going to be adding a lot of light because hidden cameras means you're trying to fool somebody. Doesn't usually work out so well. So you're always hitting the gains high and hard, meaning somebody in post is trying to use any kind of filters they can to drop the noise back down to something that is halfway decent for broadcast. Internal or an external tri-level sync, so you could tie this into a switcher if you need to. RGB, YB, PBPR output, and HDSDI. A lot of good options. Next, we came across the Toshiba IK HD1 camera. Again, CCU-based camera, proprietary connection for that one. That one is also inhibited to a certain length of cable from the CCU to the head. We're still looking at 3rd-inch CCD, 3 of them again, but this one was only an interlaced chip, meaning no progressive available whatsoever. So basically, yours is stuck at either 50 or 5994i. That's it. This camera wasn't really designed for broadcast purposes, but because of the situation we're in, you had to find something you could use in a hurry. Now, the nice thing is, again, they actually have a much better relationship to what their actual sensitivity is. 2000 at 6.8. Their signal-noise ratio, not as good as the Iconics. But again, 0 to 18 dB fixed gain, internal external sync, and at least an HDSDI output. Now, enter the next one into the market from Toshiba. This is the IK HR1H. This was their answer to the Iconics for the broadcast world. Again, CCU-based with proprietary cable. This one could at least get you 30 meters away from the head. Not so great because you still are only 30 meters away. Generally, we're finding in a show we've done lately, Meet the Family, which is run on CTV. Basically, hidden camera prank show where girlfriend takes her boyfriend to meet her family for the first time. Only done in real houses in Toronto with available lighting. So we're stuck with where we can put the camera. The control room is generally 200 feet away from there. So that means I've got to get an HDSDI cable from that CCU, which is only 30 meters away from the head. Control-wise, they had a very basic RS-232 you could get to hook up to a laptop for this computer or for this camera, but again, very crude, not very much control whatsoever. Again, 3rd-inch CMOS progressive this time though. So for anything fast motion, not generally what we're worrying about in hidden camera situations, not so bad. But at least you're getting progressive out of this camera. Again, a lot of mounting options, and they had at least 2 versions, a DVI output and an HDSDI output. Biggest issue, the DVI output version could do a lot more progressive frame rates. The HDSDI version, they didn't put any on it, really, at all. So if you had to do any cross conversion, you're going DVI to HDSDI, which means you're adding more conversion and trying to find a place to hide it. Again, good fixed or manual gain. It only ran on an internal sync. Doesn't really matter for a situation where you're just running a cable straight from the camera output. into a recorder, your choice, depending on what you want to do. These days, you're looking more at the nano flash because people need less room, and it's an easy recorder to go with. So again, the DVI output model could output 1080p 60 frames per second. The HDSDI version could only do 1080 30. So, biggest drawbacks between the Iconics and the Toshiba for us, short runs from the camera head to CCU. So you're stuck having to find a place to put a CCU next to the camera, no more than 30 meters depending on which camera in any situation. Light sensitivity. Both of those cameras, with a 1/3 inch chip, especially behind two-way glass, you're getting killed for light. There's only so much light our DOP can add in a situation like that before somebody goes, why is there so much white light in this room? So, now, back focus. There is no back focus adjust on either of those cameras, so you're really stuck with trying to mess around with where the lens is positioned on the camera to get halfway decent focus. Image sensor, again, way too small for proper detail. They're still HD, but the quality isn't really there. In comes Cinecam. Now, about 4.5 years ago, 2010 NAB, our operations manager did his usual foray down there and found the Cinecam. This camera was originally designed for 3D work. Basically, I believe a large member of the team from the Airy Alexa was involved in the design of this camera system. Basically, having C-mount camera with a 2/3 inch single CCD chip in it. The Kodak 2/3 inch CCD chip to be exact. Basically, this really increased the amount of light sensitivity the camera was able to get us. Now, the original application, like I said, was 3D work. So that means a single CCU could run two heads at the same time. Problem was, both heads, if you control camera 1, it's automatically doing the exact same change to head 2. So, we went to their engineers in Germany, and they basically rewrote the software in the CCU to give us complete independent control on both heads, no matter the situation. Now, you want to talk about frame rates? This thing covers them and then some. Anything segmented frame or progressive, interlace, including dual link HDSDI up to 60 frames per second. Obviously, again, designed for 3D monitoring, you're going to get quite a bit in there. For our purposes, at the same time, we were still doing some 3D work, so we were thinking about tying it across, but 3D pretty much died shortly thereafter. For us, hidden cameras started coming in. We saw the automatic approval and idea for these cameras to hit that market. Sensitivity, now, this one does claim a 2000 lux at f8, just like the Iconics. This is the camera we did the comparison against. It blew it out of the water by 2 to 2.5 stops difference. And the signal-to-noise ratio, 64 dB, dynamic range, 13.5 stops. This camera is pretty crazy. C-mount lens with a full back flange adjustment, meaning I have a back focus adjust. So it doesn't matter what size lens I put on there, I have complete control over getting a full back focus adjust on this camera. Now, the biggest change, I can use a single BNC cable to connect the CCU to the camera at a distance of up to 590 feet. It's a fairly new process called CoAxpress. Depending on the grade of cable, say RG59, RG6, to get that almost 600 feet, you're looking at an RG11 style BNC cable. Fairly thick, but in most situations, I'm only really running up to 300 feet. Then I'm able to use a pretty standardized RG6 to get that camera 300 feet away from that CCU. So if it's in the perfect situation in the house, more often than not, I'm only running 200 feet, not a big deal. So I can run one camera 200 feet one way, another camera 200 feet some way on one CCU. And they also included a customized GUI interface to run through any web browser. So you just type in the IP address of the unit itself into your web browser and you're automatically into it. Wonderful bit of control. And they also tied in Sony RCP and MSU control. Full matrix on this camera. So our show Splat-A-Lot that we did wasn't really a hidden camera, but they were using these as POV cameras in the set. So more often than not, the cameras were actually in waterproof housings, literally in the water, or attached to what they were calling the defenders of the castle's weapons. So whenever they were pointing the water guns at the kids, you're seeing a direct POV view of this camera as they're going after them. Just a couple examples of places we've had the camera. Most recently, actually, the bigger things we're doing lately are a lot of these viral videos. A lot of them are ending up being a lot of hidden videos too. The most recent one, for the upper left, we had our cameras in a couple of fake ATM machines for TD Bank. So if you saw that viral video of the TD Bank thanks their clients who came into the store to use our new ATM, those were the cameras they were using to do that. Down here, I actually built a box that could do one Cinecam CCU, 2 nano flash recorders off of a single 150 watt-hour battery. I was putting this into a Subaru race car at Mosport for test purposes. Basically, it handled the vibrations excellent. And then the last picture on the right there, basically a client wanted some pictures done in a flight simulator, just for training purposes. So we've had these cameras in several different places. Versatility. For us, the Cinecam really is hitting the market and hitting it hard. They have an official B4 mount, PL mount, and now they just released lightweight lens controls for small cameras. So basically right now on this one here, this is a 5mm Kowa lens. It's giving us remote control over the iris and focus. It is just a standard 5mm fixed lens, but at least I can now control the iris and focus from a distance. The B4 mount includes an iris control, so I can control the iris on any B4 lens camera out there. A couple examples of just places we've hidden the camera. In this one right here, you can see the front lens actually became the speaker cone in the front of a house. Birdhouse, although it's a bit strange when you see a cable, but more often than not, the writers were doing such crazy things that they didn't have time to bother looking at the fact that there was a cable coming out of a birdhouse. And the last two pictures on the side is just a decorative box that had a two-way mirror on the front, and all the camera was doing was sitting in the front here, shooting out a small hole through the front. Recently, we've also gone to Bradley Engineering to get fully PTZ control over our Cinecam, because in our hidden camera house, they also wanted to be able to move cameras or have cameras that could move. In our first season, we were using the Sony BRCH 700s and 900s as our robotic cameras. Again, light sensitivity being an issue with a smaller chip size, and they were all behind that two-way glass, our client came to us and said, we want to take the Cinecam and make it robotic. So we went to Bradley Engineering, who actually took their UR3 head and modified it so we could take a Kowa zoom focus motor-driven lens that could fit in the housing. I have an example here on the table. That's also in the picture on the upper right. The controller is directly from Bradley. It can control 8 cameras immediately on the control surface and up to 99 eventually. Now, a short video of an example of something we just did recently at Canada's Wonderland. 4 cameras in a single box controlled on recording on 4 nanos. Just want to give you an example of what the quality looks like on the camera at extreme G-forces. Our biggest issue was the fact that finding NDs for these lenses as well was rather difficult, because the size of the image sensor on the camera is so large that any filter I'm putting on the front of the lens ends up vignetting into the image. Obviously, I think Douglas's idea of having cut up ND filters between the lens and the body isn't going to be such a bad idea for us to attempt to use. Other than that, I don't have much because these guys covered it all for me.
And great certificate from the front section. Thank you, Oliver. Maybe at this time we could get Douglas, Mike, and Oliver to come back. If you have any questions, we can start taking those now. Obviously, there's lots of the toys out and about here. There's lots of people here from BizTech. Sony's got some representation here. Obviously, Oliver and Douglas are here as well. So once we're done the question and answer, please feel free to come up and check the stuff out as well. So we'll open it now. Questions?
Hi, I may be tired because I was at a media concert all day. So the hockey cameras, where you see those last demo you had, was there some stepping and stuttering a bit in the movement, or am I just tired?
No, you weren't. Actually, what I did experience was when I was playing these back earlier in the day, it was showing up in my MP4 that there was some stuttered motion that I was seeing. But I think that's more the conversion process that we went through.
I don't remember seeing them on music. Okay, thanks.
I'm wondering, is there an example of the cobalt cage here to see?
I don't. I thought I had one in my box. I didn't. What it is, it's an aluminum housing that's not terribly different than this rubber one that I have right here. I can get that out. It's shaped the same. It's an aircraft aluminum, comes in a couple of different colors. And the nice thing about them is they're designed to go into, well, they're threaded on all sides, so you can put monitors on them, you can put Israeli arms or anything else on them to be able to get them into different places. But they are a square box, just like this.
And you said they have them at Vista?
Yeah, I believe
Yeah,
we've
we
got
have
them.
them at Vistac, so on the second floor you can come up and there's a display there. I just didn't grab it out of the store today.
Cool. One thing I'll tell you about the Cobalt, we had one on the Bud Light commercial you saw that we did. We actually had one set up on the outside of the aircraft, and it's illegal to drill holes into aircraft. No, for obvious reasons. So we had one stuck on with some tape, and the tape was not a very good quality tape, so we lost one from about 3,800 feet and 120 forward. Landed on an asphalt road. GoPro was fine. The Cobalt cage just had some nice aluminum chips out of it. Otherwise, ready to go right again.
Amazing.
They're pretty tough.
It's great.
Question for Douglas, have you checked out the Hero 4 and what the differences are between the Sony and that particular camera?
I have. Unfortunately, because some of the linking got messed up in our PowerPoint there, I didn't get the opportunity to show them, but after we're all done, I would be very happy to put up some footage. I have raw footage that I shot with the 4 with my drone, with my RPV, and then I've got some that I've retimed and edited, and you can see what it looks like. Beautiful.
Okay, thanks, I will.
Gen lock, or can you lock two cameras together frame accurate for doing 3D?
On the small POV cameras?
Yeah, any
No.
of them?
Sony and Replay are the only two that give you time code, and the only thing you can do with that time code is use it in post to lock things up. And one thing that can happen with the Replay camera in particular is the Replay cameras, because of the way they connect, you can set time code offset on all of them, so they can all start-stop simultaneously with the same time code. There's no such thing as gen lock.
Okay. I know some people are using the Canon hack development kit with some of the point-and-shoot Canon things that do lock up. Not all of the Canons lock up, but on the CHDK site that they tell you which ones will lock up.
There are some hacks that you can do with, so since y'all are engineers, you can download the Sony SDK. It's on their AS100V site. And there are people that are hacking and using the time code to lock up, but it's a hack. It's not something that comes out of a box. Same thing with the Replay. There are hacks available for those as well.
Polarizer filters on a GoPro.
Yeah, absolutely.
Used one?
Let's see. I thought I had one in here. There's one on the table up here somewhere. Oh, there we go.
I was told that because of the field of view, polarizers aren't very effective.
You know, there's two different types of polarizers. There's one for in-housing and one for naked camera only. There's two different types of polarizers that actually sit right against the glass. They work fine. Yeah, but before these companies came out with them, there were other companies that had them, and they were always getting into the shot because of the 170-degree field of view. So that was why I started going to the direction of cutting polarizing gel out of the Roscoe gel, and it works incredibly well. Even with a small wrinkle in it, it actually doesn't create any kind of a problem. It works pretty well.
To that point, can you, or would, is there, we'll talk
He's the
about
moderator, don't leave me.
Okay, sorry. For that point as well, would you suggest combining an ND and a polarizer together? Because I know you're adding more layers in front of the lens. But for like for a drone where you get trying to eliminate.
I've not done that. There are two companies. There's a company called Fader ND that actually has an adjustable for the GoPro. They released it, I don't know, at NAB this last year. It's expensive given what the cost of cameras are. Comes in at $199, and it's got 4 stops of density on it, so you can do quite a bit with it. Or you could stack. I haven't stacked, so would I recommend it? Probably not. Could you? I guess it's not something I've done, so I can't speak directly to it.
You very quickly referenced taking HDMI out of a GoPro and going to something, I think you called a Teradek Bolt. What is that? I'm not familiar.
Bolt is a device that can be used for broadcast over Wi-Fi or cell networks,
Okay.
depending which card you put in it. And it's got an SDI input, or HDMI or SDI input to it. It actually doesn't work out of the GoPro 3, it only works out of the 4. Works really well with the replay or with the Sony. The GoPro 1, 2, and 3 before the 3 Plus have a buffered output over the HDMI. And what will happen is every iframe in the GOP sequence, you'll drop picture. So every half second you're dropping a frame. It's not fun.
On the GoPro, there's like a 2 or 3 second delay on the Wi-Fi when you're sending to another device. Is that, what about the Sony?
The Sony is quite fast, but the latency is always going to be there. Keep in mind, the Wi-Fi and that transmission is a very small resolution transmission. It's not designed to be anything but a monitor. So if you need latency-free transmission, what you want to do is, there are HDMI monitors like this one, take the HDMI out of the camera. What I use is for actually setting up the camera, finding my angle when I lock them down onto a plane or a car, or sometimes even a horse. This will give me my monitor, then I'm unplugging the cable there. That Wi-Fi signal is merely a reference point. Some people will run the risk of stopping cameras with it, but Wi-Fi is entirely unreliable.
So there's still a latency with the Sony too?
There's latency with all of it. Sony's a little faster with their own system, but still not something that I would put my eggs into that basket on.
Mike, have you ever used any of these consumer level POV cameras in a live production?
Yeah, in some of the cases we've used like GoPro and some other small POVs for things like that point of view shot. So we're not so much looking for where we. The challenge for us is the quality of the presentation and stuff. Some of the cameras that I showed you tonight, we can get a very good quality image, and it's a great contribution for the show and the main broadcast and stuff. Other ones, you know, it's that special point of view, like the penalty boxes in the early days. We would basically, you know, use a lot of other devices. Some of the early GoPro stuff, we put that in place. The one I showed you tonight was Iconics. It created a terrific image for us, and it's that's about the most that we've done with any of the, let's say, smaller imagers.
I was wondering if you used any of these small cameras in a live application that where wireless is required. In your motor racing, for instance.
Yeah, well, for us, unfortunately, we haven't had that challenge because we haven't been involved in a lot of motor racing in terms of our coverage that we've been around to date. So, other examples, it's not in the small format. Most of the contributions have been based on like a box camera contribution or even a handheld. Kind of remote RF linked location.
How about the catcher cam for Blue Jays a few years ago? Were you around for that or?
No.
No.
But I know that like through Inertia Limited down in the States, MLBI or the Major League Baseball guys, they've done some very inventive things. Obviously NASCAR with their what they call Gopher Cam, that's created some terrific images, and you get a very a good sense of the speed of the cars and stuff. Just in the recent World Series coverage, they had 2 of them embedded into the field of play, and it created a great point of view. You know, it's what you're giving up there is that resolution detail and stuff. It's obviously a very small imager with a limited contribution. So.
Mike, this may not be
done some of that stuff, like a special POV on certain band members, in a rock band kind of environment, placing around the drum kit, or it's stuff that gets.
Doesn't go up to jumbo cam very well, I guess.
Sorry,
Does that go up to a large projection screen that they have in concerts, or?
Not so much that, that would be more for what we call the IMAG guys, or the screen presentation group, and it's not a space that we get involved in a lot, so more for the broadcast or original scene recording for mastering, and then later post-production and editing, and so it's a little bit more feed into, not so much live.
Which cameras would you be using for that, Mike?
It goes back to actually some of our NTSC coverage and stuff. That was more like the XC999, the 555, that kind of.
Excellent.
Have you guys done anything like that, Oliver?
Certainly, we actually have used our Cinecam in situations like on concerts. Actually, I think the latest one was the Brian Adams concert that the Dome Truck did. They actually had one of our cameras on a robotic head just behind the guitar line. Right. So it was behind the scenes doing that, and they have used it to feed IMAG as well, and they do actually go up quite nicely on the big screen.
That's more into the Cinecam as opposed to the smaller.
Exactly.
It's a completely different field, but if you have a chance to see Fleetwood Mac in concert now, they're using a proprietary system using the AS1, the new version of the AS100. It's a little smaller one, and you'll find them actually on all the guitar heads and throughout the drum kit. And they're all broadcasting over a wireless system, but it is a 422.
For the in-house show, like for the big displays?
Yeah, yes, and they're going up to the big screen. Yeah.
What about stabilization?
I'm happy to, we're sort of near the end. I guess once we're done with the questions, I will be happy to throw some videos up and show you the differences in stabilizers. I've got some that are 3-axis stabilizers. I've got some that are 2-axis stabilizers. And then you saw this one up here where we have products that are being actually built as handheld gimbals for the GoPro products and so forth. So stabilizers in this world are blowing up. If you want to quote me on anything, 2015 is the year of external stabilization for POV cameras. You are finding these things everywhere. And I realize that y'all are engineers and come from the world where, for instance, Genlock is critical. We're seeing, especially in the Hollywood side of things, we're seeing a lot more of this world coming into play. For example, Howie Mandel has got one of the most popular shows on television right now. They just announced a week ago Tuesday, they are no longer using broadcast cameras at all in any production at any level. They are using Canon 7D Mark IIs, GoPros, and the new small Sonys. That's it. No time code at all on an Alan Funt type show. They're just bringing everything together in post using tools like Pluralize and some of the other tools to lock all the cameras up. So that world is changing real quick.
We'll just grab 2 more and then we'll open it up for some hands-on play.
I'm curious to know how you felt about pulling stills from these. I've had a hell of a time.
I'm sorry?
Pulling still images from these types of cameras.
Pulling stills?
Yeah,
I'll
especially
let these guys answer first.
No, you go.
Oh, just for me? Don't!
Not so much
It's 1920, 1080. I mean, it's cell phone quality 10 years ago. It's not something you get great stills from. Granted, they do have high resolution imagers by design or by nomenclature, but they're still very, very small imagers. That's why they're challenged in low light. You're cramming, depending on which camera you're working with, whether it's the Exmor chip in the Sony, which is the same chip technology as what you see in the XDCam series of products. It's still a very small imager, and a lot of pixels crammed next to each other on there. You're going to have a hard time pulling a lot out of them. That's just, people do it, but that's not what they're designed to do.
We got pushed to do it once for something underwater, and because I can't use Wi-Fi to change settings and do anything, so I had to do a high-speed burst, and I couldn't get shutter speeds remotely reasonable enough to get this usable.
I would suggest for getting POV cameras and look at using something like one of the new mirrorless cameras in a waterproof housing. You can do some pretty amazing things. I was just digging into that with a friend only today. To do some pretty amazing stuff at that level. And the video quality, especially on things like the new Sony 6000 or the new Samsung NX1, it's got an ISO 5400, or excuse me, 54,000. It's just a marketing number, but it's insane to see what they're able to pull out of very high ISO situations.
All right, one last.
So there used to be a limit on how much 35 megabit you could use in a broadcast show. Is that out the window now with the 50 megabit cameras?
Well, there's a difference between acquisition bit rate and delivery bit rate, and then also what the package is. So don't get hung up on just bit rate. Yes, there used to be a limit on that, but stuff that we're delivering, the stuff that I'm delivering to Discovery, when I'm setting that out, that's going out in XDCAM 42250 megabit. That is a delivery standard. But that bears no relationship to whether this camera is 50 megabits or that one 35 megabits or this one 16 megabits.
Yeah, but in acquisition you can only use a certain amount of 35 megabit with Discovery.
Discovery has dropped their requirements for most of, yes. On acquisition, I see, you're asking about acquisition bit rates. Discovery's dropped that. They learned their lesson after so many seasons of Deadliest Catch and Ice Truckers and whatnot. Deadliest Catch, they started out with F350s. They ended up going down to EX1s. After they lost, $500,000 worth of cameras over the side, they went to AS100s. This season they're using AS100s. I mean, they're a Sony-sponsored show, so you can only drop so much overboard.
All right, with that, one final thanks to our three presenters. We welcome you to come on up and have a look around.